All right, it came late, but we're catching Akiyama versus Vid. Now, this is a rule set where the total level of cards has to add up to 27. So we can see Vid has a level 9. In fact, I think Ray sent me the breakdown. Vid 98712. So we can see the level 9 in hand. We can see the level 7 in hand. Where's the level 8? I think Ray is wrong. This must be two level 9s, right? 924A and 58A4. So 997, that's 23, and then a 2 and a 1. So 5432, and then 1 of 1352 or 3152. Akiyama then has the remaining cards, the other of the low levels, a level 10 in 8A74, a level 8 in 1789, a level 6 in 5873, so that adds up to 24, and then a level 2 and a level 1. Both of which are on the board. The 5343 was his. Okay. All rules are in effect, including elemental. I think the hand stuff's really interesting, but I came to the game late, so gonna just note that mostly for my own thinking, and then move on. 58A4 is a pretty good downward facing sweeper, but I guess it's Akiyama's cards that need to sweep. Sorry, taking a sec to get acclimated to the position. Pretty good plus wall coverage by Vid's cards. 5873 and 1 is covered by plus wall from 5432 or 7825. Well, that covers 5873. 1789 is covered by 7825. 8A74 and 7 is covered by 584A. Also, that means anything in 6 is covered. There's a decent chance this is kind of dangerous for Akiyama. Let's say 5873 and 7. That looks pretty good. It does get rid of one of your down cards, but it also does something useful. Of course, 7825 and 6 has the plus, and if you do use and you don't have any way to take that 6 is a very good square for Vid. Alright, so Akiyama occupies 6, removing it for Vid. This makes sense, and now Vid's 2 cards on the board are very weak. Vid will go in 3, but with which card? So if you go with 5432, you're up 6-4, but after 5873 in 1, you can't win. If you do it with 7825, that importantly doesn't capture. If you do it with 58A4, you keep coverage of the 7, but you lose your power cards, and there's no way you're winning there. So I think this holds a tie. And I would probably just play 5, 4, 3, 2, and 3. You got to check all the moves there, of course. That makes it 6-4. If 5, 8, 7, 3 in 1, then you go in 7. And the 8A47 can't take it, despite how elemental works. Can't take the 5 even. Certainly can't take the 7. If 5873 in 4, I guess that ties to 2. No, yeah, I guess it does. No, it doesn't, because the elemental in 7. Gonna have to get used to elementals for when I play this rule set. 5873. Not that that's like an important move, but just checking everything. 5873 and 9, 5884 and 4. And 7, 5884 and 4. That's a tie. And if you start with 8A74 in 7, I combo. If you go in 6, that's nothing. And if you go in 1, I take it with 5884. Yeah. So 3 definitely ties. And I think blocking 6 made a lot of sense from Akiyama. It looked like the traditional formations were really bad, specifically because of the 6 square, right? Vid had this plus in 6 that was a useful combo. Note the element in 8 means comboing through 9 would recapture 8 if needed, but also that square being safe due to the elemental. Very powerful effect. So it makes a lot of sense to block 6. Both players going for somewhat non-committal strategies, right? I think it's quite interesting to use a level 1 and level 2. Both did. I'm not sure why you wouldn't use 2 level 1s to up a level elsewhere in the hand. That doesn't really make sense to me. Because I was thinking about going 1 1 5 10 10 and seeing two people go kind of 1 2 6 8 10 ish, right? Just strikes me as why use a level 8 when you could get that up to another level 10 without too much cost? Or a level 9, get an A on it. A's are really hard to take. One of the stipulations is no double numbers. And no double numbers facing a corner, right? So 5 3 4 3 is allowed, but 5 3 3 4 or 5 4 3 3 would not be allowed. The threes can't be touching. And so A's are quite strong because they can't really be opposed. And so it seems to me that upgrading from level 8 to 9 is pretty powerful, and upgrading from level 9 to 10 is always fairly powerful, especially when the level 9s that do the best approximation of being level 10s, A944s, are banned. Oh, I totally missed that 5873 had the plus and 9. That might have affected some of the lines. Yeah, I'm going to have to be very careful about Elemental. It has been a while since I've played it. So there goes game 1. Yeah, I think they've both gone with these kind of somewhat grab a little from each point on the kind of power curve, right? Grabs a few low levels, but not the full 1-1, and then mix throughout. And I think the exploit, if there is one, might be something like going 1-1 5-10-10, which I think would be favored against either of these hands. And then there's the question of can you go balanced and just not take the weakness, right? So could you do something like 5-5-5-6-6, adding up to 27? And yeah, that's going to get swept at the end by the level 10s. That's going to be really dangerous for your mid levels. But you have some play against the mid levels with plus walls and pluses. And you have some play against the high levels, not the 10s, not the A's, but the other numbers. And you really are going to sweep the low levels. But I think the thing is, the low levels are going to be used early. And so sweeping them is maybe a little less important. So I think the better try for something else is to go with one low level, right? Something like 1-5-5-6-10, right? Then you have a level 10 as your sweeper, but you haven't had to find a way to get rid of two cards that are all but useless. Maybe there's some use for that. I'm really not sure which way to go. I think, yeah, they went with yeah, Ray read it as Vid going 98712. Vid clearly went 99612, right? And then Akiyama went 108612, 108621. Yeah, did not remotely consider either of these distributions. And I didn't catch much of that game, but I don't think I'm convinced to reconsider off that game. Check if it's up in view games, but I think I'll just record. All right, there's Akiyama's game up again. This has been short, so I think I'll pause till the next game starts, and we'll be back this video when game 2 has started. One other thing to note is how many hands do you have built, right? How are you adapting to what you see? One thing interesting with Elemental is every game really is quite different than the last, right? So if you stick with the same hands and you thought it matched up badly, it may have matched up badly with the elementals, right? Something like, if you're from Akiyama's perspective, that 7-2-8-5 landing in 6 was a huge problem, right? That was something that needed to be avoided. Is that card a problem card? Or is it just that there were elements in 3, and with elements in 3, he lost his ability to deal with it, right? And sometimes a card can seem like a problem card one game with Elemental and not seem like a problem card the next. I think that's pretty frequent. So there are sort of two ways of adapting, or three things. You can kind of stick with your hand, you believe in your hand, or you believe in what your hand is doing, or you believe in the matchup and you stick with it, right? It might be the hand that makes the most sense to you, but it might also be the hand that you thought matched up well there, right? You could stick with for a whole number of reasons. But if you're adapting, what are the directions to adapt? One is to have built multiple hands. Sometimes people build kind of turned sideways versions of the same hand. So you have the same hand type, but you went, okay, something on this version didn't line up quite right. I'm going to move to a very similar hand, but it'll change how everything aligns, and thus I'll still get to use the same hand I wanted to use, but I won't have to deal with some specific way it aligned because I've rotated everything and now it all lines up different. And so if you like your hand but don't like the matchup, or are worried they will play a counter hand, you adapt to go to something that is similar, but if they build a specific counter hand to what you just played, it won't line up anymore. And if the line, so for whatever reason you think the lineup of hands is not great, but you still like your hand in the format, then that can be a good way to go. Another thing is to have quite different hands backed up. I am intending to build a whole bunch of hands, and if like we play the first game, and let's say I go for the attempted exploit and play 1-1-5-10-10, and then realize no, the level ones, two level ones was way too big a cost. This was terrible. Making a slight adjustment or rotating the hand if I think running two level ones is just too big a cost, that's not going to do it. I'm going to need hands built of other types. So I'll have, maybe a 1-5-5-6-10 hand ready to go next. And then maybe I realize maybe he's using level 8s really effectively, and I go, actually, the level 10 is kind of too costly. So then I switch to a 1-5-5-8-8 hand or something like that. And I want to be ready to adapt not just to how the hands line up, but if I completely misinterpret the rule set, right? I'm gonna, we're all gonna have to make a pick, right? The pick made by both of these players was I'm gonna have a little from each thing, and maybe that's a good way to kind of figure out where you are and adjust within that, right? But I'm probably gonna make a more committal pick to try to jump immediately to what I think is best in the hopes that I catch my opponent Delial having committed to something that isn't best. But that means if I'm wrong in that pick, I need to be ready to switch to one of the other picks, right? One of the other strategies. So there is the question of how many hands do you have made, and are they hands of a similar type, or are your pre-prepared different hands that are very different in nature? Because on some rule sets that could be, okay, you built a level 10 hand and it was built around A9-6-4s, and you switched to a hand built around A8-8s, right? Something like that. Obviously those are a big switch, but here you don't just have switches of like which cards you think are powerful for the level, but what levels you're using entirely. All right, we're going to sit and watch games. And so I think you're going to want to have more prepared in case you're really wrong about what the path is. Because I think, someone could reasonably come out with like level 5-5-5-6-6. And your max number there are 8s, and three of your cards, the max number is a 7. And your opponent like runs, and here's something I was thinking of running, and I may run A8-8s, and it just turns out the A8-8s have 3 directions that can sweep your level 5s, and due to plus wall same wall potential, basically sweep your level 6s as well, and you just get swept in the end game. But maybe you sneak out a tie there and you go, wow, that was a disaster, right? I just barely survived that. This hand is a horrendous matchup, and it's because I misunderstood the rule set, right? Very easy rule set to miss aim, and thus a rule set where I do really think you want to have a variety coming in. Because the normal type of adapting is okay, I saw their hand, I noticed they were a little weak in this direction or didn't have the ability to capture this, I can realign. And if, for instance, we look at Akiyama's hand and we look for where the one gaps were, there were some on the low level cards, but let's ignore the low level cards for a moment. The 1789 is the card I'm interested in. That means a 9XYA is covered by the 7-8 part, and an A9 whatever is covered by the 8-9 part. But if you put an A9 in some higher corners, right? Maybe you take or maybe you take even lower corners, like 9A42 Alexander is going to be a card that lines up pretty well. Wait up. All right, so Brotherhood of Seed are doing some trolling here, I think. Let's recount what's happened today and my understanding of it. My understanding's fairly minimal. The rule set went up yesterday. Got some clarification on what cards were legal. And this morning, before I was awake, European time, a game was played where Akiyama used all level 1s, which is illegal. The total hand level must add up to 27. And Vid used an 8854, which is illegal. The 8s are touching. Very illegal hands from both players. And Akiyama won that game. It is very clear that game was not played remotely seriously. That it was not a serious effort, but was meant to troll. So that got posted. Now, the game we just saw came later with them playing properly. Both hands fit the stips. That seemed like a properly and reasonably played game. And then Akiyama puts up another game, and Seto takes it, who is not his opponent, and they both pick kind of show off rare hands that are deeply illegal. Note, every card in either hand, well, I guess half the cards here are rare. Ward is not rare, but we all love Ward. Ward counts as rare. And Ultimisia is a quest card, which sort of, it's not rare, but it's sort of a, weird to find where it's listed. And then, of course, Squall and Cypher are not rare. Also, you'll notice Essie Adia is being used. Yeah. So, okay. What I think is happening is we are getting trolled again. And so, I guess we'll stop this video here. Interesting first game. I do think it makes some sense if you don't think there's an exploit, or you're not sure where it is, right? And you don't want to commit too much in any one direction. Starting with something like 1, 2, 6, 8, 10 says, okay, I'm just going to divide up the power level of my cards. I'm going to have a clear sort of trajectory of your cards I use. I'm going to use the levels 1 and 2 first. I'll save the 6, 8, 10 for later. Hopefully 10 is my sweeper, but as the game works out, any of those could be my sweeper. And I'm going to play to the advantage of my cards later. Okay. And that also gives you time, assuming you tie the game, to figure out, is there a direction I want to adjust in, right? Is this, if this wasn't the way, how can I move towards, you have a chance to see if there are problems and move towards those problems. Well, this game is, let's say, a peculiar looking game. I'd say potentially not the best played ever. Yeah. Very weird tournament rule set. Weird behavior from the Brotherhood of Seed people. I believe the rule set has been called abominable. I'm displeased about the elemental part. And I also think when adding up to a specific level, it's nice when the range is narrower. When the range is this big, it means you can't target so much what you think your opponent will do. And it means if there is an exploit, it's often a little too big, right? If it turns out that 10-10-5-1-1 is too powerful, um, it's kind of too much too powerful, I think. So I like stuff where there's kind of modality and choice within it. This one, the choice seems very broad in a way that I'm not sure how it's going to work. But that looked like a well played and interesting first game. And I do think it makes sense from what I've seen of both Akiyama and Vid that they would choose not to aim for exploits, but to simply aim for, all right, I'll have a few powerful cards, a few weak cards, something in between. Sure. Without going kind of whole hog on the sacrifice the weak cards to get really strong high end cards.